going.
So while I was
Okay,
in
you were gonna say.
Canada, while I was in Canada, I had lots of time on my hand and I was talking to people, and there was one debate which it would be very good to get your perspective on. So
Yeah.
I was trying to move away from the terminology exit planning. And
Yeah.
I talked to quite a few people, and one of them said to me, he said, for the first 18 months of his business, he had zero customers. Zero. Because I was just saying, I've been struggling with getting traction. And
Yeah.
he said, don't shy away from it because it's a very important proposition. Just because the customers don't want to hear it yet doesn't mean they shouldn't. And
Right.
it's something that, so I started talking, and then as we were talking, I said different people, even people who are all in the exit planning, have a different perspective on it.
That's
And I
right.
said my perspective is slightly different. I wouldn't say it's earth-shatteringly different. It's just I look at it different. So the idea came to say, well, why don't you write it as a small brochure? I already had a brochure. This is well, expand it. Lo and behold, brochure, the little expansion became an ebook. It's 100 pages now.
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
wrote it in 100 pages, and then for the first time in my network, I just asked people, I said, who would like to review it? And I went to my own accountant. I said, can you review it for me? He said, yeah, sure, send it to me. I said, just tell me one thing. I don't care about editorial. I don't, because if it gets to a point that it's good, I have to invest and get an editor and graphics design. Reading the content, just answer one simple question. Would you recommend it to your clients? That's it. So that's all I want to know. And there was a financial planner, the same thing. I just gave them, and I gave it to a business owner and just said, just tell me what you think. So they
Yeah.
came back and just said, I have no hesitation to, it's very good, good content. I'll send it to people. But here are a few things that, you have some personal stories which brought it very nicely together, but it's very long. Can you just trim it? You had some hints at a case study. It wasn't there. Can you just, so it was very good. So because when I went through it, I just realized different people look at the exit planning differently. Like there was one guy who came to me, it was a few weeks back, and they were talking about it, said, no, I'm not ready. And there was another guy who the same day said to me, well, I want to sell my business. And I said, what drives you to sell? Oh, the business is bad, the economy, I'm just sick and tired of it. The market is not growing. There are too many competitors. I said, what do you think? Like, who would buy that business?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
you're not really selling it there.
yeah, I said, like, hello. And he said, well, we were very profitable. I said, well, the profit is in your pocket. And
Yeah.
and I said to people that I was talking to them to say, that's why the title of the book is Exit Before You Exit.
Yeah.
So,
I like
and
that.
when I just said to people, good exit planning is a good business planning.
Yes.
And I was trying to explain to them, I said, people who are under 500,000 revenue to 1 million, roughly, they're still in a micro entity. It's still not an asset. It's your lifestyle. You pay
Your
your
lifestyle.
bills, you pay your people, and if the world collapses tomorrow, you get a job. You can move
You
on.
get a job. Yeah.
There is something about 1 million to 2 million revenue when things starts to change, because now all of a sudden more people are doing the work. And I was being interviewed by a group, and they asked me, what are your perspectives on startups? Like, which ones do you think they're going to survive based on your coaching? I said, there is a very threshold when a founder shifts from a supervisor to a leader. And the
Mm.
difference is a supervisor means I can do your job. It's just that I'm worth more. I don't waste my time to do your job. And I said,
Right.
that mentality brings you up to that 1 million threshold. But once
Right.
you hit that 2 million, you have to bring someone, the job they do, you cannot do. So you're
Yeah,
no
like
longer a
that.
supervisor that you can just a step away, or I'm going to come and do your job for you, or I tell you what to do. There's nothing. So you actually, because in this book, I just said, leadership is almost like a continuum. You lead, great. Everybody loves that. The egos are boosted. But the second part, which is crucially important, is you follow. Even as a leader, you follow. And I remember
Mm,
when I was working in my career, the great leaders, regardless of the size of the organization, the leaders who would delegate to people and then follow them were the ones
right.
who are almost guaranteed to make the organization successful. And the third
Right.
one,
Not pulling it back.
exactly. And that's why it's such an important, I don't know. Because I remember once we were working on a consulting project and I had done something and my boss's boss showed up at my desk. And then he asked me these questions. My assumption was, well, you're the senior partner, you know. He looked at me and said, I have no clue. You are the person. And it was the first time, and he just said, and if you're afraid, I am behind you. I am
Wow.
a fan of Team Homey. Lead the way.
That's a leader.
That
They're
was,
encouraging.
yeah, and it wasn't like a rah, rah, rah type of thing. No, the conversations were still very tense. But he says, I need you to step up even to us because you know this. You have been engaged with this. This is your expertise. We follow you.
Right.
And that was
Right.
so I was just saying to them, just the supervisor, it can do everything. The only thing they don't do it, they need resource augmentation. It's better lifestyle. I can clean my house,
Right.
but because I don't have time, I get a cleaner. I can
Right.
I hire it. But if you get a gourmet cook show up at your house, that the reaction is completely different. There's no way I can cook what he or she does.
Right.
But
Right.
and that is the mentality shift that I said. That's the first part of the exit because you get
Yes.
at that identity that it's all on me, all it's me.
Yeah. Because that's such the thing that's holding most business owners back in that, right? Is this, and I think it's a sense of control of I could always jump back in because they've had to in the past. And there's that price point
Mhm.
of, well, what if I have to jump back into it? I want to be able to afford to do that. But if you are going to take it to that next level, you have to get that leader that, like you said, they're going to know things you don't, way beyond what you know. And that's the catalyst. That's now how you scale because you're now bringing into your business things you would have never been able to do before at all. And I think it does take courage. It takes a big step of courage to go, I'm not a supervisor anymore. I'm not going to be able to run this aircraft carrier. I need people who know how to run a giant thing that have the expertise in that. And then I'll have to follow their lead.
Exactly.
And then there's success on the other side of that. But because we're not familiar with it and we're uncomfortable, so many people just stay where they are. And like you said, they'll blame it on price. But I think really it's this fear of letting go
Mhm.
and having this paradigm shift of putting leaders in place of where you used to supervise and you used to know. But you can't know it all. And why? Why would you want to know it all? Do you want to own a job or do you want to own a thriving business that you can exit from?
And that brings me to this immediate trap because the moment I say this to, like, when I look at my clients, they're the ones who just said, no, I don't feel comfortable not going there. I have
Yeah,
clients who didn't want to go over the threshold of the 1 million because they knew over 1 million, they cannot supervise it.
right.
Right. Fine.
They lose
That's one.
control.
They are
They'll
the
lose
ones
control.
who say, not only I don't want to hit 1 million, I'm thinking about a 50 million. So the sooner
Yeah,
I get over this, the better. Just like one of those, yeah, yank this, things off my wound, let it heal, let it go. But there is
right.
middle part that I see, those are the ones who nod, but they're looking for a backdoor. Because I remember I was
Yeah.
working with this client when I mentioned, says, "Oh, this is great. You're right. I should give them." And then after a while, the next time we were chatting, and just so how are things? Oh, I'm trying to learn what he does. And I'm like, why?
Why?
Well, I have to
Why?
know. No, you don't.
No,
You
you
can't
don't.
learn everything. You need to understand what they do, what they are supposed to contribute to the system, to the business.
Yes.
Hold them to
Yes.
account. If they don't deliver, I don't understand you and I don't want excuses. And I gave this excuse, this example, never fails. So, Andrea, you were late today. Okay.
Mm.
9 times out of 10, people say, yeah, I was caught there. I was there. And I say to people, when you're having a leadership conversation, you tell to people, I didn't ask you what was the reason you're late. I just made an observation. And I remember the first time I worked with this gentleman, he was a super boss I'd never seen. When he would come to a meeting, because he was a CEO, he was so busy, he always was late. He would
Yeah.
start by saying, apologies. I am
Yeah. Yep. There
never
goes the power.
excuses. Why? He said, I am late. I apologize for wasting your time. Let's just quickly see. Like, for example, if I was 10 minutes late, let's see if we can squeeze everything to 50 minutes. And he would move on.
Boom.
Fact that people would just see the guy who's so powerful admits, because the fact is he's late. Why he's late is not relevant to the meeting. Doesn't mean it has no implication on the meeting. And
Right.
if you go into the loop of explaining, you eat another 20 minutes. He would get it out of the way very quickly, admit, apologize, go.
Yep.
It's a fact.
Don't dwell.
Exactly. So
It's
I was saying to them, just
judging.
when you have the team, you basically tell them, for example, you were supposed to deliver, I don't know, 500 new leads. You didn't. Simple as that. And I remember the crucial thing that came to me, because most of my coaching is based on my personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
My father passed away in 2000. So I asked for a leave of absence so I could haul around the other side of the world, go to his funeral, because everything was on my head. So I had to be there. And I said to them, I don't know exactly how long it's going to take, because I'm going to a very unstable environment. So originally it was supposed to be 5 weeks. It ended up 7. And it was our year end was, I think we were January to January, our performance reviews. So January, I did something. March, this happened, so I had to go leave. So for 7 weeks, I wasn't there. Next year, January, comes my annual review. Okay. So I go to my boss and he says, so these were your targets. You missed, you missed, you missed, you missed. Very point blank. I was sitting there asking for, come on, have some empathy. My father died. And I remember
Right.
right away he said something and he says, you didn't meet your target. But we do understand the circumstances that contribute.
Mm. Yes.
The bonus is not going to be what you expected.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
simple,
okay.
but
Facts.
we
It's
are
just
really
facts.
trying to hope for you with the next year, etc.
Yeah.
And
We
to
try
be
again.
honest, exactly. And because, and this is the thing I just said, facts and personal interactions is they didn't give me my bonus, but I was only allowed to have 5 weeks holidays. And the 7 weeks really put me into the leave of absence. And I had already
Right.
taken some holiday. They took the leave of absence as my buffer for the sick leave, because I didn't have a sick leave for the whole year. So I did get paid
Yeah.
for that too. They just said, look, no bonuses, but you get paid for that 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Other case was, I used to work in Vancouver in a factory. And we had a supervisor, shift supervisor. He was a very gregarious, bigger than life kind of person. And I remember he hired his best friend to work. And the guy was a great mechanic, and we were working in a mechanic shop. But he was a bit of a jerk. So he made a mistake and he completely destroyed one of the major accounts that we had. And they tried to blame it on me, and I got very angry because they thought, we hush hush, Homie never says anything. That day I decided to push back.
Right.
And I remember he looked at me and he said to me, Homie, you're right. I was trying to use you as a scapegoat because I knew you usually don't talk back, you never say anything. I
Wow.
apologize. And he walked to Greg's office corner and said, Greg, you're fired. Like his best friend's face just dropped and says, pack your
Yeah.
bags, you're fired.
You're out.
The spot. So Greg packed and he was going. And then he said to his assistant, he said, I'm going to take the next 3 hours off, like a half day off. And he put on his jacket, ran outside to get Greg and said, hey, buddy, let's go for a drink. Let me help you find your next job. You see, he had very clear lines. Inside, he was the manager responsible for us and for the business. His friend was fired. But the moment he stepped out of the business, that was his best friend. So he cared in terms of, do you
Right.
have money? Do you have this? Because it was like a low skill job. We were paying like maybe, I don't know, like minimum wage back then was like $4 an
Yeah.
hour. We were being paid $5.50. Like we weren't
Yeah.
that far off. So for us, we lived paycheck to paycheck. But that demonstration that he stuck to the fact, he didn't give Greg any chance to make any excuses. He said, Greg,
Right.
you're fired. Pack your bag, go. But as Greg was going, he became human. Like you can be numbers, pay by facts, but have compassion on the side of it. And that
Yes.
thing that becomes very important. You need to become a leader, which is more than a supervisor. That person has to fill two shoes. One is facts, you didn't deliver. And the other one is the human side of it. And just say, well, what can we do? Either
Yeah, and I think that's
the company.
the hardest part of that transition. I think that's the hardest part. That's where so many business owners live. I know obviously I'm going through this myself, but it's this separation of when do we, the emotional maturity, emotional intelligence of being a leader. Because, if you've been an employee for most of your life and then you're making the transition to become an entrepreneur, or if you're an entrepreneur that has hired friends and sees your staff as friends, or as it's your self ego affirmation system, is that's how you run your business, is to get affirmation from other people. You have so much to learn about emotional intelligence and separating your emotions from the facts. And again, it comes down to, do you want success, or do you want someone to stroke your ego? Do you want to feel good? Are these people here, do you have a business, or do you have a social club? And you have to ask those tough questions if you're going to get to that next level. Because you can't manage if you think you want everyone to like you. You can't fire the friend. And how interesting to be straight up to you too, to say, I was using you as a scapegoat, but you didn't do it. You grew a spine, so now I have to do the right thing, and I have to fire my friend, and I have to be a boss right now, and then I can run out and be a friend later. But yeah, absolutely, that to be able to just sit there and dead face say the facts, it's one of those things. If you can take everybody out of the room, take the emotion out of the room, and if you were doing a case study about anything else where you didn't know the players in the game, you didn't know who these people were, you had no emotional connection, how would you make decisions based on facts? If you're in a courtroom and you're hearing facts and evidence presented to you about a murder case, and you don't know anybody, you're going to be a lot more objective. But when it's our own businesses, when it's our own people, these people we've hired, we've associated so much, we've attached so much outcome on emotional gratitude that become blindsided from making objective decisions. And I think so many of us business owners might know that, like we've been told to do that, but when it comes down to the moment of having to do that review and not getting emotionally attached to it, if that's the difference, that's the catalyst. Are you actually practicing what you know? Are you applying what you logically know? Or are you going to go back to just being a business owner that needs that ego? How long are you going to need that before you're going to just make decisions on facts?
And it's just a little bit of a side tangent on this one. This is what I mean, exit before you exit. This is the
Exactly.
exit. You exit that persona that the business was your lifestyle, was your baby, you're part of the family, to business is an asset, is an entity that exists. However, I'm not trying to say be cold and impersonal. No, 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 no. Remember
Right.
when John walked out of the building, he ran to get his best friend. Inside the building, the facts were Greg messed up multiple times. He was bad for the business. So, Greg, you're fine.
Yeah.
But outside, he was there for his buddy. And the funny thing is, because they stayed in a bar for a very long time after work, we all went to the same bar. And
Yeah.
none of us had a hard feeling with Greg, because
Right.
he's a nice guy. He was jerk in a sense that he didn't pay attention that other people are affected by it, because he was very good at what he did, but it didn't
Right.
translate to everybody else's success. So we
Right.
sat there and have a chat, and I need to always say to people, the key is you look at the reality, then you go to the emotional side, as opposed to
Yes.
go to the emotional, then try to figure out what the facts are. No, you look at the facts and then you just say, what emotional support do I need? Like
I
my,
mean, any professional does that, right? Doctors have to do that. First responders have to do
Mhm.
that. How do you ever save a life if you're going to go in emotion first? You can't. You have to go in facts first, emotions next.
Exactly. And this is one of the things that I say exit before exit. And today I was in a networking event. I said to them, because all of them are dealing with real estate, property development, renovation. I said, when I was in Canada, I had a friend and he wanted to sell his house, his home. And selling your own home is usually the most difficult thing because you're so attached to it until you absolutely hate it.
Right.
So
Then you're ready.
he loved his home to the point that now he hates it. Now that he hates it, he wants to sell it. Here's the problem. The agent comes and just said, well, it's not nice. Things have changed. People have this, have that, the painting, the job, the windows, etc. Because right now there are so many houses on the market, people go for the house they can move in. You are in the category that people have to repair and renovate before they move in. So he sat and thought about it and just says, okay, after a while, well, I'll do the renovation while I'm in my home. So they started renovating, okay, based on what they liked and what they thought people. So long story short, once they finished the renovation, he didn't want to sell it anymore. He wasn't that, because he didn't hate it anymore. Do you see what I mean?
He got attached again. He got more emotionally attached to it.
No, this time it was different because it's a nice house and I have history, I want to stay. But when the offer came at the right price, he said, no, we'll go to the new, bigger house that we wanted. And I said to people today and said, that's what your exiting your business means. You make it so ready that somebody can take it, but you may choose and say, you know what, I actually like it, I stick around. Fine.
Yeah.
But you have
Yeah.
the option. That's what it means, exit, or
Exactly.
you exit. You already exited out of that emotional coils of things attaching. And in
Yeah.
order to do that, you have to, and this is the example that I said at the beginning, you have to make sure your house is in tip-top shape. You can't let it go. You have to make it in a way that other people will see it as, wow, I want to live in your house. You see what I mean? Like sometimes, I
Right.
don't know if you've had this. Sometimes you go and see your friends' houses. You just, wow, if I could buy their house, I would move in right now. And there are some you go there and just say, not a chance in hell I would ever consider moving into that house. You see what I mean? That is the difference. You want to run your business the way that people come and say, yeah, I would really like to run that business. That gives you the option that you basically have exited out of that emotional attachment and um, technical carelessness, I would like to say, because things just morphed into this business. Because most of the people who have businesses, things evolved into, like, I've been a contracting consultant, then we built a consulting firm. It actually morphed into that until one day when we had a big project, we had to hire 20 people. And we just said, well, we need an org structure. We need to have systems because what are we going to do with these 20 people?
Right.
This,
Right.
and it was not just a gradual evolution. It was literally a revolution. We had to tell each other, break down the barriers. You can't work that way. It has to be this way because you and I know each other. We know how we work, but those 20 people don't. And we don't have time to build that 20 years of experience with them.
Right.
You need to
Right.
write it down. The moment you write it down, now I'm bound by what I wrote down. So I can't just say, well, I bypass everything, but you guys follow the path. You see what I mean? And those are the type of things that is so crucial for people the entrepreneurs to realize. It is a journey and not everybody likes to go all the way. Like I have,
And there's a lot to learn along the way. You know, just being given the information is one thing, but like learning how to be this leader, learning how to be this delegator, going through the emotional let go of not having to be and the control let go. That takes time. That takes a lot of wisdom and learning and aptitude, and you're going to do it wrong. You're going to give yourself time to fail along the way before you become this great wise leader or person that can implement great wise leaders to be able to recognize who those people are going to be. That will take time. And I think so many people think, oh, because I read the book or I learned about it, I just have that knowledge, I'm just going to apply it. And great for people who can, but I think for a lot of us entrepreneurs and business owners, you got to give yourself time. You know, there's going to be failing in that process. That's okay. You keep going, you're going to fail forward, you're going to learn from that, but you're not going to have this emotional intelligence day one. You're not going to have these skills day one. The only way you know is to get started and go in that direction. And what would you say to business owners that are starting to see this? They're starting to see, wow, yeah, I really have maybe plateaued. I'm hitting a ceiling here, because maybe they're starting to see it's because I've been the supervisor and I'm, I want to get to that leadership level, but what are the typical pushbacks you're hearing, and maybe speaking to that? I think I think a lot of it I'll hear is, well, I would hire that person, but there's no good talent out there and they're very expensive. That's probably one of the first ones I hear. And then the next one has to do with, well, they're, you know, I'm afraid that they're gonna mess up my company and then I'm not gonna have to know how to fix it.
it is one of those things because it is in all performance, any arena when performance is important, whether it's sports, whether it's business or personal. When you reach a plateau, that's a given. When you get to a plateau, there are two options. One is you exit. Like, for example, as we were talking, I just recalled there's a client of mine. She's a fantastic woman, great entrepreneur, but she's an entrepreneur who starts from garage to 2 million. Then she leaves. Once I talked to her, I said, don't, she said, I don't want to be the other person who expands the business. I just started. I am from 0 to 20. After 20, somebody else take it to 100. It's not me. And I don't want to become that person. Great. Because she knows when she hits the plateau, it's time to go start another one from 0 to the plateau. Now, if you choose to stay there, the good news is you will have this exponential which takes you to another plateau. The bad news is the moment you start that journey to the next plateau, it starts with a very nasty dip, because you're shifting from what you knew to something. Your performance literally goes into this hockey stick. It goes down before it comes back up. Managing that dip is very crucial. And there are a couple of examples I have. I don't know if you recall Andria Agassi from the 80s. When he came onto the scene, he was a great tennis player, but he fizzled out. He never lived up to his potential. The story is somebody talks to him, one of the coaches, and said, your grip has to change in order for you to start winning the Grand Slams. You haven't been able to win. You keep losing on the semifinals, in the finals, quarterfinals, and the key is your grip. You have to change it. Now, for a tennis player who has played this for millions of hours, changing your grip is not easy. So for 2 years, I think, Andria Agassi would get knocked out in the first round, second round, third round, never made, and everybody thought Andria Agassi was finished. All of a sudden, he turns around and he starts hitting the Grand Slams. The reason was, at the beginning, that change of the grip meant he's not that good anymore. But all the knowledge that he had from playing the tennis was ready, that when his new grip would fit into the style of play, he would just take off. He would just go.
Right.
And I heard the similar thing apparently about Tiger Woods, because Tiger Woods also, when he was in his heyday, had about an 18 months drop. And apparently he also had to change his putting game, something about his golf swing or something, because he wanted to go, he knew he had reached a plateau. So they were bold enough. That's why this is so important. Bold enough that if you want to go to the next plateau, there is a dip. And there's actually there's a curve called S curve, which looks like a hockey stick. So you go down, you go back on top. And even in your own career, you can just see it. When you left your job and came to start your business, guess what? First, you don't know what you're doing. It goes down, but then it goes back up. Now, this going down, basically, it is emotionally draining, but it requires that you remember, or if you're working with a coach or a consultant, that they tell you there is something at the top of it that is changing, but the underneath, the expertise, experience is there. At the right time, when this top starts to settle, everything will become like a rocket. That's why you quickly make a huge improvement, almost like, you haven't, there is this cliche about people say, oh, he was an overnight success, and say, yeah, for years I was working for that overnight success. It's for a couple of years, you've been working for that overnight success, and it just goes. And this is one of the things that business owners, and I always say to people, and I said, you will exit the business. That's why I don't want to change the terminology, because I thought it's not actually planning, it's preparation. You're preparing. But don't want, because the terminology, when people are hung up on a terminology, usually means you cannot dilute it. You have to hit it head on. That's my perspective. That's why I wrote the book and just said, no, you have to exit, but there are different types of exit. You exit from the old way you lead. You exit the way you used to be. Like, I used to write code, so I was a good programmer, but one day I had to manage a release. So I had to let go of writing. And the first problem that I had, I tried to look at everybody's code until my performance started, as a release manager, started to fall behind. And my boss said, you haven't done this. Well, I was doing this. I didn't ask you why you're doing it. Your job was to do this.
Yeah. My job is to tell you, you haven't missed the mark. Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that. When people get really caught up with this in spirituality and stuff too, like, oh, I sinned. And it's like, you come back to where the word sin means. It literally is an archery term that just means you missed the mark.
Yeah.
And people will assign so much guilt and judgment, and then they have to overcome with all these reasons. And it's like, no, it's just, you just missed the mark. And you will never know if you hit the mark unless you get feedback that you missed it. And I think that, it's so, when you go through that dip, when you're trying to get to that next level and you hit that dip, I think what you have to learn there is the humility, the patience, the fortitude. If you don't face that pain of being Andre Agassi one day and being a complete wash up for 2 years, if you can't handle that ego gut punch, you're not ready to get to the next level. And so you're going through that emotional maturity, and you're learning a new level of discipline so that you are prepared with all of that to get to the next level. I remember when I was doing ballroom dancing, I'd been doing it for years, and I was dancing with my partner, and my coach was there, and I was just like, it just feels awful. It just feels like, I feel like today is the worst I've ever danced ever. And she's like, you are just at the bottom of a new level. See, before, when you were really good at silver level, it felt great because you knew everything, right? Now you're at the bottom of a gold level. You, of course, are going to suck. It's like your freshman year in college. If you want to be Happy Gilmore and be so proud of being a 30-year-old and only having graduated third grade because you were so good at third grade, that nobody respects that, like, you're gonna have to hit that bottom of a new level to get through elementary school, to get through high school, to get through college, to get through business and professionally and everything. And there's going to always be a dip. But do you really want to be super proud of only having graduated from third grade? That's not an accomplishment, like.
I think you really hit the nail on its head. It's that humility that you just realize, I hit the top. I'm at the top of grade whatever. The next
Grade
grade,
8.
I'm at the bottom. It doesn't mean I'm staying there. I have a chance to grow. But there is that period of being, because that's what you also said earlier. I just wanted to call it out, is that we always make mistakes. And the reason we succeed is because of those mistakes. If the mistakes weren't there, and I remember one year I was in San Francisco, and a friend of mine introduced me to a couple of the venture capitalists and said, these guys are very friendly, they're my friends. Why don't you go and have a chit chat? You have lots of questions about entrepreneurs. So I went and sat down with this guy. He was a very nice guy. He invited me for a nice coffee and no time limit, and said, talk. So we talked about everything. And one of the things that he said, he told me about his story. He just said, look, I started a business and it blew up, nothing. And I was homeless. So the people who funded my business, the VC that he was working for, they actually said, you know what, we have a little bit of bits and pieces. Why don't you come and work for us? We pay you something as a contractor. So I came and I worked. I helped with the other business in the portfolios while I was working. After a while, they just said, well, we actually like you. Why don't you stay, become a venture capitalist? Great. And I said to him, and I said, what is the one thing, if you had to check one thing on an entrepreneur, what would it be? Because I usually like to pick people and just say, forget about it. If you could just pick one, you would only know one thing. And he said, have they failed or not? And I said, well, elaborate. He just said, everybody fails. Every entrepreneur fails. If you have failed and survived and have the humility to admit, that means you can overcome the failure. I want someone on my books that if they fail, the next question is, this is how I'm going to grow out of it, get myself out of it. If someone has never failed, I always fear the first failure, either they hide it, they run away, or they just completely collapse.
Right.
So my
Road to
thing is, I want to know, I do not invest in any company where the founders haven't failed before.
Right.
They said they haven't failed. I said, go find somebody else, not us. And
Yeah, because we don't want you learning on our watch with our money.
yeah, it just said it is so true. And to be honest with you, that's the dichotomy of the American culture, because I always say to my American friends, say you don't appreciate your culture versus European. In European, they give you lip service that, oh, failure is good. You fail, they'll never touch you.
Yeah.
Whereas now here it is, I'm in the Silicon Valley, and the guy says, I don't touch you unless you prove to me you have failed.
Yeah. And you have the skills to claw back in life.
I want the
Yeah.
callbacks. That's what's important
Yeah.
to me, not that
Yeah.
it's one. And I remember that's why I say it's always a parallel in the with the sports. I once had
Right.
a trainer, and this trainer has this motto that he trains you in 20 minutes session. He never had his training session more than 20 minutes. And I remember I would go to work out with him. He would give me the biggest weight that I could never lift. And I would do 4 reps and he would kill. And every time I thought literally my muscles were ripped.
Right.
And I said to
They
him,
do it.
I said, and he said, the point of bodybuilding, exercising is the point of breakdown. We want to get to that point quickly. The rest of it is warm up. That's why I tell you before you come to see me, there are the warm ups. Do your warm ups. When you come, I'm here to make your body fail. And
Right.
I feel always bad that I never finish my reps. I never ever finish my rep. I say I'm going to do 6, I'll drop at 4. I say I'm going to do 4, I drop at 2. And he said, that's the thing you have to get out of your mind. You're not here to finish the reps. You are here to make sure your body fails.
Then you're
And
familiar. You're very familiar with failure. And that
right.
is the skill. Like, how long can you be in the pressure cooker? How bad can it get? And you got steel in your veins, you keep going. That
That
that's
requires
life.
humility. That's why I said
Yeah,
it's so
it
important.
requires
You
humility.
have to be humble and just say, sorry, I can't do it.
Do it.
And he always had this thing. He never, because one of the things that I always frustrated me is said, how many reps? He never told me how many. But he would, because like when you were lifting, like even if the weight was comfortable, then he would count and stop you from. So instead of just lifting your bicep, he'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. He would kill you. He didn't know
Yeah.
how many reps you were going to do. He had one goal for you to fail.
Well, I think that brings up, a really good concept, which is the self-sabotage. I think a lot of people have had in life, business owners, everybody, is that maybe you've gotten used to and are addicted to, have grown accustomed to the winning. The maybe you had talent, and so something was just very easy for you. You didn't really have to try. Maybe you fell in with a company and you had success early on, and maybe you're just really good at something, and so you've grown accustomed to this sense that I'm very good at this and I don't have to try, and that feels normal to me. So then when a coach comes along and pushes you and you're just living in this constant state of failure, I'm not good enough, you're thinking somehow that is wrong because you've been comfortable. You've been used to this. I was so good at 8th grade. I was so comfortable there. I was at the top of my game. I was huge in high school. Now you're being thrown into a whole new ring, and there's this like push against it. I think as humans, we just constantly compare. And I think you've got to be able to recognize, hey, you got addicted to comfort. You want better, you got to get familiar with failure and pain and humility. Because and that was what my dance instructor said. She was saying, we're at the top of our game, we're world champions, but she's like, one time we had a we were told that we weren't supposed to do the show. We had to fly to Florida, do this big show. We lived in California at the time, and they canceled it. They said, just get here, settle into your hotel. We'll have you guys do some stuff later in the week. Well, they proceeded to have a huge fight. The partners was a married couple, huge fight. just awful, got totally drunk on the airplane. They were just a hot mess. They land in Florida and they get a call saying, really sorry, the other performers got sick. We need you guys to go on. So they lost their costumes. They didn't have anything. They had to use someone else's costume. They're in this horrible way. They did the worst performance of their life, and they got a standing ovation. So once you hit a particular level, I don't care how crappy you feel that day, if someone's gotten you very close to failure and pushing through against the odds, even the worst of your performance, if you're at that level, it's going to look light years beyond everybody else who's just been very comfortable at a low level, keeping it easy. So, I mean, to be very familiar with failure means you can show up and do the worst job ever. It's going to look amazing to everybody else who's never even attempted
I
to do that
have a
familiar
suggestion
game.
for a book that you would really like, I think, called The War of Art. Not Art of War, War of Art.
The War of Art. Oh, I like that.
It's only 50 pages and it's a small book. I have it somewhere in my bookshelf. It's literally like you can read it in 2 hours. That's exactly
Yeah.
what he says. He talks about, he said, in life, on certain things, you're a professional and the rest you're an amateur. And he gives a very, very clear distinction. He said, when you work, you're a professional. If it rains, you go to work. If you're in a bad mood, you go to work. You're having a bad day, you go to work. But in your amateur activities, you want to be a writer. Today, I don't have the inspiration. You're an amateur. Today, I don't feel up to it. Or today, I'm emotionally drained. Today, I didn't. And said, that's the difference. You have to really, because a professional, because I read this interview with Paulo Coelho once. They asked him and said, so how do you write? And he said, I go to the office and I write. What do you mean? At 10 o'clock every day, I sit and write for 2 hours. Then what do? Usually I throw it in the garbage. What do you mean? My job is to write. Not everything is going to be a masterpiece, but it's my job. I'm a professional writer. And I talked to a friend of mine, he's also a writer, and he said, because I was writing my PhD thesis, and I thought I was going to have a masterpiece. And he said to me, because in the olden days, there was still, I'm old, so some people were still writing on typewriters. And he had a trash can right next to his desk. And he would write, and he said to me, he said, if you want to be successful, every day you write for 2 hours, but you write for the trash can. Don't try to get, you write for the trash can. He would literally write, and he said, don't edit, don't go back, don't read it. You write, then you read it, you throw it in the bin, another one. And I remember it completely changed like it took me 7 years to finish my PhD thesis. And people said, wow, you worked so hard. I said, no, I only worked 4 months at the end. I finished the whole thing in 4 months because the moment he said to me, you sit down, you're a professional, to 10, because I used to write from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. I didn't care. I would just write, and I would, even when I would make his spelling errors, I wouldn't go back to change it on my word processor. I could see the red. I wouldn't go back to say, I have to finish my whatever I was supposed to write. And it was a big change because when you become a professional, humility is part and parcel of it. And that level of humility says how good of a professional you get. Because you need a little bit of humility to be a professional, but you need a lot more to become better and better to go through these plateaus. And I think it's a very, very good point that you just mentioned, especially for the ballroom dancing. A professional dancer doesn't care, goes in. You have to, you're paid, you have to dance. You don't have a choice. You're drunk, you have a bad day with your partner, you dance.
Show goes on, show must go on.
But if you're an actor, just, no, I don't feel it today, it's because you're not being paid. And that's one of the things I always say to mostly for myself. And if I coach someone, just I will ask for money. And a lot of it doesn't have to do with them. It's for me, not financially. The moment I get paid, I have to be a professional. Even if
Right.
in my head I had a bad day, believe me, I can park it aside so quickly and focus on you. And when the session
Yeah.
finishes, I'll go sob about my own problems. But it is such an, and I always say to people, if you get something for free, I guarantee you you're getting a low quality.
I like that it has to go both ways. Like you need to, I've always understood it as like you have to pay something because you've got to put skin in the game, you know, because again, if you pay, if it's free, that's how much value you put on it. But if you pay something, you put skin in the game. But I like that on the other side too. You need your person you're paying to put skin in the game.
Yeah.
They need to show up as a professional too, because if you're trying to get a good deal from them, get them to do it lower, how much do you think they're going to bring to the table then? You ask them to discount your rate, and you really think they're going to show up with their best? No. You know, or you ask it worse, why don't they just give me the advice for free? It's like, because they're not going to show up as a pro. They'll show up as a friend, which means they can have a reason to not be there anymore. They can make up excuses because we're friends. It's fine. I love that. You got to do it for you as the professional and also for your client.
And that leads me to a related topic is that one of the clients that I had, he has a business that he has about 15 employees. And we were talking about, he said he wanted to get salary benchmark. And I said, you know, the benchmark is rubbish. It's good for big corporation. It has nothing to do with you. And he said, no, everybody does that. I said, I know they do it, but let's think about it this way. Who do you want to work for you? He said, well, the best people I can get. Great. So they're not going to be, they're going to way above the benchmark. You cannot have, I said you have 15 people. If you have 2 clowns in your group, your performance will completely collapse. You can afford to have one. And I remember, and I learned this terminology, sorry for the language, it's a bit rude. So I was interviewing for a firm, and I was asking these questions to the owner of the firm, the senior partner. And I was asking and I was trying to dig, but I couldn't say. And finally said, Homy, let me stop you. We have about 200 people working here. We do have assholes. We don't let them congregate.
I like that.
And I
I
started laughing. That I can't
Me
get
too.
rid of all the assholes, but I don't let them congregate. That's the
I
small
like that.
business. So I say, you cannot let them congregate. So if you don't want them to congregate, you have to pay better than the big corporation. So they bring their A game in. And
You need a
because
lion leader.
you are
You
paying
need a leader.
them top dollars, you expect them top performance.
Right.
You're not going to give them excuses. And I have this very cruel mentality and say, get the best people, don't work, fire them as quickly as you can.
Yes. Yes. And I think that is so difficult for business owners. I think one of the barriers to that is because maybe they know that they haven't set the SOP standards yet. They haven't made the job so clear that when it's clear that this person isn't meeting their targets, that they don't get rid of them and replace it with a new person. And I think that fear is because they know I haven't done the job yet to really clarify this role. And so I'm going to coast along a little longer with this person who is not performing because at least they seem to know the job. And that's just another thing that comes back on the business owner, on the leadership there to get that role clarified. Because as soon as you know what a forward is supposed to do in the game of soccer, as soon as you know what the target is and you know how that role is supposed to be done and you can coach it, You get rid of the one that's not performing and you replace it with somebody who can't, somebody who has better stats, somebody who knows that role. And I think as business owners, that's just another reason why you have got to invest in SOPs and clarity around these job roles, because then you can play this game right. And it is a game. You got to get the, the emotion out of it. And I think, I absolutely have been in that as well. And that's what I come back to. I'll come back to, you know what, this person's performance, I'll relate it to me as the owner to attach the outcome, but it's because I haven't put things in place to make this a role, a job that's easy to replace, to know the stats on, to know if we're doing good or bad. And that's on me. That's on the owner to take that time. And again, it's like the Agassi moment. You're going to be probably crappy in your business while you're putting together SOPs and getting really clear about stuff that's in your head, in their head, very clear to them. But you're trying to get the scorecard right so that you can go at it without any emotion, show up and just say, you missed your targets. So this action, because we have a goal and this role is supposed to do this. You didn't. Period.
It is very crucial, because I just want to loop back to what we started, because I have another thing. This is just my observation. I always say to entrepreneurs and leaders, it doesn't matter whether it's a corporation, a small business, it is a very nasty thing, but you're not going to be a good manager, a good leader, until you fire somebody.
Right. Yeah.
And there is a very reason for it is, number one, you remember that dichotomy of supervisor versus leader. Supervisors don't fire because they can always do your job. They can carry your weight. Leader has to fire because, coming back to the analogy of soccer, I cannot be a forward if you don't score goals. I got to get rid of you. I got to put someone who scores goals. But if I was a player that I could put somebody else, well, you sit on the bench for now, or you just move to the right wing, let other people do. But the moment you got to that level of performance, it becomes very crucial that you have to perform. If you're not, you're fired. And I remember one of the, at that time, I thought it was one of the nastiest thing that my boss did to me. There was a young lady in our team, and she was very charming, she was very pretty, and she was very smart. But she was in a performance improvement program. So from the outside, my boss thinks, oh, she's great. They were sexist. They just put her on the performance improvement. She's on a PIP.
Yeah.
So she turns around to me and says, get her to come back, come out of PIP. So now she's on my profile. So I have to look after this. Perfect. And I just realized this woman, charming, very smart, doesn't deliver. So after a while, I went to my boss and said, well, this is my observation. She's not delivering. You're right. She's charming. She's this, etc. Maybe people were sexist, but the facts remain. So anyway, she argued with me a little bit. And then one day she said, I'll take her over on my project. I said, fine, take her on your project. And I kid you not, literally 2 days they worked, I got a call at late at night and said, fire her. I said, this is the nastiest thing someone can do to me, because I was new to the firm and I really didn't want to. And I just said to myself, well, I have to do it. So I was just thinking, what do I say? I said, no, I just asked her for a meeting in a formal settings. Because she said, well, would you like to have a coffee? Because I said she was very charming. I said, no, this is it.
This is it. We need results. And you have to know what that goal is, right? Because maybe the goal was, I want to have a pretty face. I mean, some soccer teams and football teams and things, they hire the shiny superstar. They get Dave Beckham. They get, whoever the big name is, because they want the exposure.
They don't care.
Yeah, they want the exposure.
Yeah.
If that's the goal, okay, that's why you got the pretty girl in the place. But if the goal is to win and Beckham's not scoring goals, the
You just get
team,
rid of it.
you'll lose the deal, you'll lose the sponsorship, but what's the goal? If the goal was the sponsorship, okay. If the goal is to run a company and be surrounded by these people, again, that's ego. We're back to this emotional connection to something that's not real. It's the thing is, you'll be surrounded by hot women and amazing people when you have success, and they'll be better. They won't be there for fanning your ego. They'll be there because you won. And the spoils of war comes to those who win because they had a goal. And you go and you have to have targets. And you gotta have
And
winners
this
on your
was the
team.
thing. That's why I say it was such a favor for me in hindsight.
Right.
When I walked in, I thought to myself, I said, if she doesn't leave my team, I have to put pressure because she was a very good analyst. She could produce
Yeah,
when
probably
she
could
did.
too.
She just didn't do it what we needed at the time that we needed. And she had missed everything. And I said to
Yeah.
myself, getting myself ready, I said, well, she's a very nice person. Coming back to what John did, I'm happy to step out of the building. I said, I'm happy to help you find another job. But here,
Yeah.
these are the numbers, these are the performance. You're way below the worst of my team.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
supposed to be a top performer in this team. Not about this is not that you just got promoted to this role.
Yeah.
It came in coming at the top of this. So I just sat there and said, bang, bang, bang. And I said to myself mentally, said, if she doesn't go, I won't succeed. And I'm feeding a team of 8 people. They
Right.
will not succeed. They won't get their bonuses there. So this is not favoring someone. I'm actually doing disservice to 10 other people.
Right.
Laid out
And that's
everything.
leadership. That's leadership.
And
Keeping an eye on the team. And you help the person too, because that's a kindness. It's a kindness to be honest with people about they didn't miss the mark, that they missed the mark. And because now they have feedback. She could go improve. But if you give them lip service because you want to fan your own ego, because you're not emotionally immature enough yet to get yourself out of the driver's seat, to be the professional,
And to be
then,
honest,
we
it
make
was
bad
very
calls.
painful because she was upset. She,
Of
as I said,
course.
she was very well spoken. She was very charming. She offered every solution, and I had written before going into the meeting. The meeting has one objective: she out of the building by the end of
Good.
the meeting. So I remember I explained everything, and I said, "Now give me your laptop. Off you go." This was
Yep.
not one of those things. This was one of those things you basically, she had the company laptop. I took it over. I walked her, escorted out of the building. It was very difficult for me. Like I remember I had to take a day off because of it.
Of
Because
course.
you just
Yeah.
feel like it. Because at the same time, as I said, oh, I have nowhere to go, etc. The problem was when I told her afterwards, I said, if there's anything, because I was a career coach, I said, well, if you need anything, I'm happy to help. If you want references, etc. I'm happy. And in hindsight, 5 years later, I bumped into her. And I thought, oh my God, she's going to say something to me and say, you were the jerk who fired me.
Ew. Yeah.
She may have had some resentment underneath, but one thing that was, she was very successful. And when she talked to me, still charming, still very intelligent, she talked results.
Ah,
Previously,
she
she
learned.
talked results.
She
And I
learned.
thought to myself, I said, coming back to what you just said, I said, maybe, and I'm not trying to, tap myself on the back, maybe that decision that I made that day helped her to see that she has to turn all of that because now all of a sudden she's working as a consulting group that I think she's part owner or she's a
Mhm.
shareholder or something. She goes to very big conferences. She's well spoken. She's very intelligent and she's delivering results. And the reason I knew because when she was talking to me, unlike 5 years before, she wasn't explaining the process, what she would do, what are the things she's read, what are the things she can do. she was constantly talking, this is what we got, this is what we did, this is what we got. And I said, I don't know if she knows, and I'm not going to be bold enough to step into it and just say, oh, you have changed so much. I just said, I'm glad you're very successful, etc. But the takeaway for me was, number one, you cannot be a leader until moving from that supervisor to leader until you fire one person. It could
And
come.
there's pain along that way.
Exactly. It could come. It will happen. The question is not if, the question of when. You just have to
Right.
do it. And the key to it is results, emotions on the side. You talk results, then emotions can be outside the building. I was more than happy to go and help her with her CV and everything. But inside the building, the role that I had couldn't tolerate her. Should not
Right.
tolerate it. And to be honest with you, I thought she stayed for 6 months extra. She should have been.
Right. It couldn't pull off the band-aid. And I mean, I think so many times it's difficult for business owners or managers, supervisors to have those difficult conversations and take the difficult action because we have something in our past where it happened to us or it
Mm.
happened to somebody that we cared about. And we haven't unpacked how that pain is now allowed us to learn some things and grow to be better. So if we're still connected to that, well, it wasn't fair that this happened to me. And then you're trying to go in and meet your targets in your company, you're going to go in with that emotional. Well, it's not fair. So I don't want to hurt this person. I don't want to be mean to them. Look, you're not. If you are hurting somebody, if you are handicapping them from the truth, that's that is, I mean, you keep somebody on for years, pumping up their tires, overinflating their ego, and then you chop them off at the legs. That's worse because you've been lying to them the whole time. And now they're going to have a lot longer time for them to unpack that too, because they've been living in this la la world that wasn't even real. I think the kindest thing you can do is be honest and be fair and get rid of the baggage you might have as a business owner or manager of when you felt like this happened to you and it hurt you in life and it felt really unfair. Because until you get over that and you see that as that was a learning lesson, somebody did me a kindness by removing me from something or showing light on something I wasn't good at, and instead of connecting our emotional self-worth to that situation and that outcome, until you overcome it and you see it as it was a learning moment, you can't be that leader that can fire to show them that it's a learning moment. And you do have to know what the goals are, because what is the goal? Is the goal to win these targets? Then if you know that goal, it's easy to go. It's simple to go into the conversation. It's not easy. It's never easy because we're humans, but it's the right thing to do because you know what the target is. You know we're trying to win the game. And we can't win the game if we just have pretty sponsorships. We need
Yeah,
people who meet the targets. And these are the
exactly.
targets. These are the targets.
It is. And to be honest with you, one of the things that I always, I don't fear, but my antennas go up when I go to a business owner, a small business, and says, oh, everybody's a family member. Literally.
Yeah, right. Me too.
Because I
It's
had
like,
one
okay,
client who said to me, these are all cousins. You cannot fire anybody. I said, oh,
okay.
God.
We got a social club here, not a business. We got a social
Exactly.
club.
And he was probably, to their credit, they were all really trying to, except one person, everybody was trying to improve. There was only one person in the family. And when I explained to him, because he asked me feedback for all of them, he said, I'm not going to fire them, but I need your perspective as you talk to them. I said, here are the strengths, this. Everybody improved during the coaching program that we had, except one person. And the reason was he was a very technical person. He cared about all the other people who were reporting to him, the other cousins, but he wasn't carrying the weight that the big boss needed.
Right.
And it was such a difficult conversations with him.
Yeah.
So difficult. And it took, I would, because the program was about 12 months. I think in 24 months, we started seeing that George has made some improvements. Not that he was incapable of, he just wasn't going there. Very smart, very charming, very friendly, which is usually almost becomes like deadly sins when you see it. They have all these things, but they don't deliver results.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it comes back to goals. It comes back to goals, because if that business owner of that family head is like, well, our goal is to maintain a family business and pass this on to more family. Okay, then you can't have that goal at the same time that you want to go public, those are going to be competing goals. But if you know that the goal is, well, this is a family business and it's going to be passed down to family, then your ideology, the goals, the charter that you have for that business is going to be designed to put up with people like that. You are going to write into your policies putting up with family, because our goal is love first and family first. It's not business. It's it's a family business, but the goal is different. So if people have that goal, they have to realize that's competing with you taking things to the next level, because you're not playing the same game, you're not doing the same thing. One's a church social club and family and one is a business, and they have different rules. There's different rules of engagement with a successful business. That's going to be something that allows it to grow and thrive and allows you to exit from. If the goal is to keep a family run business, you're going to take different advice, and you're probably going to learn how to suffer this
And this
type of
is one
family
of,
member.
well, this is one of the reasons when people come to me, like people love to talk about statistics and say, "Oh, businesses fail." I said, not all of them are businesses.
Not all of them are
Some of these
businesses.
family
Yeah.
businesses starts to decay, then they will just die altogether. They all just collapse. Some of these businesses were designed that they would last only the founder. When the founder stops, the business stops. I said, don't read into the statistic. And I had one supervisor, being a supervisor, I had one executive at IBM once, and he taught me a very important lesson. We were all consultant, go and show statistics. And one of the slides I wrote, 80% of the companies tend to do this and 20% this. And everybody was, wow. I had found these statistics, I had analyzed everything. And he just tilted his head back and he said to me, "Oh man, am I in the 80% or the 20%?" And I'm like, I don't know. And he said, so basically that stat doesn't mean anything to me.
Right. I like that. Yeah.
You
So
know,
they're
if
just
you
numbers.
tell me, if you go to the gym, your chances of success is 80% higher, that's a risk I can take.
Right.
But if you say people who show up at work, 80% fail, 20% succeed, then the question is, am I in the 20 or 80? There's
80,
nothing
yeah.
you can do with this.
What
And
did
that's
you
what
curse
I
me
say
with
to people.
now?
Yeah. People come and says, well, 80% of the businesses fail. Okay. Am I in the 80% or the 20%?
Yeah.
You have to give me, and this is one of the things, that's why I say exit before exit. That's how you know your chances of success will increase. Because the
Right.
businesses that survive, there is something we know. Their revenues are much higher. And when the revenue reach a level, 5 to 10 million, you cannot have dependency on one person.
Right.
You
Right.
actually have gone over that. So let's work backwards. Exit, put these things in place. And the
Begin with the end in mind.
exactly. And the ones who hit the 10 million are the ones who are attractive for buyers. Because if you have a 10 million revenue, 3 million profit, in the 15 million range valuation, and people would pay attention to acquire you. You see
Yeah.
what I mean? You don't have to exit, but you are on the radar. So you always have that option.
Well, yeah, and if you've built a business you can exit from, you don't even have to sell it to somebody else. You literally can just go on vacation for the most of the
Exactly.
year. You know, you can retire early in a sense. If you're gonna be in control and you like it, then that's a way out. That is an exit, to retire, to do less, to get the choice of doing less. But you
You
don't
have
get
the
that
option.
choice. Yeah, you have that option. But you don't have that option. And I think a lot of people, they use that. Well, I don't want to build a business to, sell somewhere. I'm not greedy. And it's like, no. It's the same strategy. Because eventually you don't want to work this hard. You need it to be a choice. And then people will go down the road of like, but I really love what I do, and and forget all those nights and days they're saying something very different at the end of the day. It's just unpacking that. It's like, I get it. I get that you built this thing and you're very proud of it. But until you let go of that being who you are as a valuable person, you're never going to be able to build something that you actually can retire from one day. And everybody wants a break. Sure, you might do it until you die. Great, because you love it. But it's the choice.
Yeah.
It's the choice. And it's the fooling of ourselves that somehow it's different. Like somehow talking about exit planning means that I'm gonna sell my company and be this thing one day. You've got to disconnect that, all that emotion. That's, again, it's all just emotional stuff that isn't facts. It's not real. And do you see the glass half full or half empty? I don't care what the statistic is. You get to
It's one of
choose.
those things, because at the beginning of my book, just to address that point, because I said I wanted to be a bit provocative, I said, this book, if you're one of those who want to die at your desk, you probably don't need to read this book.
Don't need this book. Yeah.
Otherwise, for the rest of us, you will exit. The question is that you're prepared for that or you're not? And the answer is very simple. We all retire, whether you like it or not. You eventually tap into your pension. Now, do I stop working? No. But do I retire? Yes. When you know you have a retirement, you start preparing for it. If you want to retire in 30 years, you probably do less. You do a little bit of in your 401k or whatever your pension scheme is. But when you get closer to it, you start to be more attentive to where is your investment? How is it balanced? What is the portfolio? You get ready. You're preparing for that. And then the question becomes, and the ones who have done the best retirement planning is, what do you do after you retire? Not just you can retire. What do you do after? And this is one of the reasons say you have to always have exit before exit.
Yeah.
Because I had a prospect who recently, just when I asked the question in the Freedom Point from the Value Builder, and I want to do X. And I said, are you doing X? And he said, no. I said, that's the point. You start today.
Start today.
But you
trying to do it now.
I want to be a great dancer once I retire. No, you start dancing now. You get great after retirement. But you cannot start after, because once you do that, it actually helps you detach from, and this is one of the things that Tim Ferriss once, I think it's in his 4-hour work.
Yeah, I love Tim Ferriss.
He said, take mini retirement.
Right. I love that.
Bundle that, take mini retirements. So for example, when you have when I had this recent loss of business. I lost 2 businesses because of the government policies and etc. And I said to myself, I treat these as my mini retirement. But
there we go.
Of, stopping working, because I never wanted to work. So I work till I'm 75. Treat this as a mini retirement. Okay. And then just go. And that's the whole philosophy of exit before exit. Retiring. Yes. If you ever want to have a retirement life, retire now. Like people say,
Yeah.
oh, you're going to travel around the world. Why don't you do it now?
Do it now.
Oh,
Do it
I
now.
want to write a book. Why don't you do it? One day you will do more of it, but today you can start. And the moment you do that, you exit your business, whether you like it or not.
It's so smart. It's so smart. My husband and I did that. He always had this concept, and I think I had it too, of like, retirement is you find yourself on a beach drinking coconuts and Mai Tais, and everything's just great, right? That's retirement. You end up on the beach and everything's amazing. So we tested that theory. We went to the beach. We lived in Playa del Carmen for 3 years. You've got to test your retirement, because what we found out was we didn't want that retirement. And imagine if we had started that, made that our plan when we were 70, and then we had no options to change. Like, if you do a mini retirement now, you can even test the theory if you like that retirement. We found out we don't like it to be hot all the time. We like it cold in the morning to drink our coffee. We like to be on a time zone where we can still talk to people and we're not having to wait. We like to, be able to shop and just have weather that's more temperate. And we realized we'd rather that. We'd rather a life that actually looks more suburban in our retirement, that just has more freedoms to travel. It was the freedoms, it's the choices, the choice to be able to go to any country in the world, the choice to be able to work over here and work over there. That was more of what we wanted in retirement than anything else. But if we hadn't have done the mini retirement, if we hadn't have tested the theory, we would have shown
Love
up in
it.
our 70s. And then we would have had to like make excuses for it, of like, oh, it's totally what we like, and got there and been like, well, I
And
don't want to live at the
It,
beach forever.
it is very true because, like, people say retirement all sitting on a beach or sailing. And I said, well,
Yeah.
when you're busy, exhausted, that is a good restoration period. 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, I'm looking forward to go back. And this is one of the things I love it. You should test your retirement hypotheses.
Test it. Some people do. Some people love it. Great. They find that place on the
That's
beach, they
fine.
get the boat, they do the thing. Fantastic. I'm so glad in our 40s we tested this theory, because now our 70s are going to look like what we want, because we will have been doing the mini retirements. And I realized early on, it wasn't about trying to get the money first. It's about positioning, being able to put yourself where you can position what you do in life, having these freedoms and the ability to go, hey, if I can get to this point, then I have control over the choices or the freedoms to make choices. And so sometimes you're going to be in business where you're not seeing all the money yet, but you're positioning yourself to be able to get that. So much is positioning yourself to be able to pull the lever of freedom before the money shows up, because if you can lose the money. Your
Yeah.
business could be very good and then you lose the money, and then now you're chained to something else. So you got to be looking for ways to unchain yourself, because then you can position yourself to do anything else, maneuver in that next step. And that means not there's just so many business owners that get taken down because their ego and their self-worth is so connected to a particular business or thing that they've done, that it crushes them when it fails. And they're not somebody that would be able to handle failure. You've got to be able to not be that attached to it, so that if and when it fails, you're not crushed. You keep going to the next thing. You learn and you go to the next thing. And I think that it is really sad to see some people, and again, it's because they have put their self-worth is so connected to this thing. It's not an asset, it's their home, it's their person, it's what they are. And you're setting yourself up for the risk of total self-annihilation if you're emotionally that connected to whatever it is, because you can't take it with you. We all die. There's one thing you can be certain of: you can't take any of this with you. So if that's the end game for all of us anyway, why not exit now before the exit? I mean,
I love what you just said. I'm going to shamelessly steal it. Just test the
yes,
retirement.
yes,
Because as you were talking, I remembered there's this gentleman I taught. He's not my client, but we were talking about exit planning. And he said to me, he said, he always worked with the plan to retire at 55. And he said, I'm in my late 40s, 55, I want to sell the business and retire. And I said, well, what are you going to do in your retirement? He said, I want to do painting, run an art gallery. And I said, are you a painter now? He said, yes, I am. It's just that I don't have enough time. My gallery is in the basement of my home. I'd like it to be outside, to be a proper gallery so I can sit. Now that you just said it, say, he already knew what he wanted to, and he was doing it. The whole point was,
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of work, a little bit of retirement. I want to
Yeah.
a little bit of work, a lot of retirement. But his retirement was to be a professional painter. But he didn't, he said to me, he said the reason he moved from being an artist to being a mechanical manufacturing company was it wasn't paying well. And he enjoyed the running of a business. But he also likes that now that he's reaching to a point that money is going to be there, he said, I want to use that money to reverse this. He said, look, I'm not going to stop working. I'll still probably consult and go and do things, but I want to run my the art gallery. I want to paint and just have my paints on the wall. I have enough money because right away I just said, well, do you have a financial planner to help you with that for investment?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, my financial planner actually is helping me. And now that you mention it, I said, what he actually had done, he had already tested his second life. His retirement,
Yes.
for many people, it wasn't retirement. Living in the same house, but instead of doing the manufacturing work, he was doing the painting work. And he is
Yeah.
doing it. It's very nicely, just the balance just shifted. Fantastic.
Yeah. Because that's life quality. You're going for, I think retirement so many times is just the quality of life that you want to have at the end. What's in that? Because so many times we get tripped up by the money. And it's like, but again, goals. If you want a big publicly traded company and you're going to be in the limelight and you're going to have investors and all this stuff, that is a different rule book, and it's going to come with some pros and some cons. And like that one person you talked about, she wanted to build a business at 2 million, but she didn't want that next rule book. She didn't want to do that part of the game. She wanted to do what she was good at and just do that again and again and again. And I think that's so important, because then you actually can find that quality of life of what success or retirement looks like for you, because I think it is very different for a lot of people. A lot of people, they're just looking at the dollar sign. Maybe it's because they want to just keep doing exactly what they're doing in life. They just want to be able to prolong that for as long as possible. And if they're really honest with themselves, and that truly is what they want, is they just want more of the same, well then there you go. You've tested out retirement. Then it is just about money and building systems that will sustain the money of that. But I think too many times people are like, no, actually, I'm not happy with exactly where I am in life. I want a different kind of quality, and maybe just more of this one particular thing, or freedom to choose to change my mind. And honestly, for me, the freedom to change my mind, I have seen now, is way more valuable than anything, because we grow and I'm somebody that wants to constantly improve. And as I improve, I change, my preferences change, and things I used to think were so amazing change to something else. That could be a different part of the world. It could be what I spend my time doing, all of that. So for me, I'm looking for the freedom to be able to make that choice, to be able to position myself so that I could always, and of course money comes with that, but if you want to paint, now. If you want to be at the beach, go to the beach now. Trust me, you need to experience that. If you want to travel now, because some people, they get into retirement and they hate the traveling. They don't want to go to China. China sucks, or whatever it is.
Well,
Dang it.
and the funny thing is, the first quote on the book that I wrote is, it just when I was very young, I was never a Beatles fan, by the way, so I'm just giving the disclaimer.
Yeah.
So I wrote the quote, is from the Beatles song, says, you say goodbye and I say hello. And
Yeah.
I said, for me, it was always this, that you don't run away from something, you actually run to something. You're not
Mm.
exiting your business, bye bye. You're actually saying hello to the next chapter, to the next one that
Yes.
you're going to. And that is such a shift of mentality. It's not about goodbye, it's about a hello.
Right. And if you don't even know what
In
the
order to,
hello is,
yeah, in
if you
order
haven't
to say,
defined hello,
exactly, in order to say that strong hello, this goodbye better pay a lot of money. It's as simple as that. Because money is not important, but money is the lubricant that makes the transition easy.
yes.
It's one of those things. It's one of those things. Like I had a coach once when I was very young, and I was very anti-money. I was a socialist, and I said to him, "Not everything is about money." And no, I said, "Money doesn't make people happy." He said, "Absolutely
Mm.
true, but lack of money sure as hell make you miserable."
Sure as hell will make you miserable.
I
Sure as
thought
hell. So, I
about
mean,
it. I said, "Well, I don't agree." It's just so I tell you one thing: if you are sick, dying, divorced, whatever catastrophe, think of it without money and with money. Which one would you choose?
one gives you choices,
He
and
said,
the other one,
the point is not to get attached to it. Just know that this situation versus this situation, this gives you more option. Don't work for money, but it doesn't mean that you say no to money.
right.
Don't chase money, but it doesn't mean you say no to money. And
Right.
I always say, because people ask me, say, "Oh, you were so obsessed with money." I said, "I'm not obsessed with money. I'm just saying your next chapter, whatever it is, you want to sit on the beach, fine. You want to go to Timbuktu and just live in a hut. Which one do you think you would prefer?" I didn't say you have to have billions, because one of the things that somebody said to me recently, I gave this value builder freedom point. They came back and I said, "Look, freedom point is not fixed." Because
No.
hey, look around your life. I have a friend, he and his wife, they wanted to retire. And their retirement was they wanted to travel, they wanted to work in different charities and NGOs and etc. At one point, the wife says, "I want to do it sooner." And over the
Mm.
weekend, they sat down, cut cost out of everything. They said, "Well, if we're traveling, we don't need these costs. If we don't," and all of a sudden, they planned from we're going to reach that level in 15 years, reduced down to 5 years. And when he explained to me, he said, "We don't need these things." Like, for example, if we're
Right.
just saying we had allocated a lot of money for having two cars. But if we're traveling, working with the NGOs, I don't need two cars. So the budget goes down. We have a
Right.
big house in a very expensive part of London. If we're traveling, we can just move this to a cottage in a very cheap place. So the capital requirement goes down because they wanted to have a mortgage-free home. And all of
Right.
a sudden just changed because they had that clarity of what are they going to say hello to? And this
Yeah.
they're coming back to, they had already tested the hypothesis of the retirement. They get so
Yes.
much joy out of that one. Just going traveling from place to place to place. They make money. It wasn't cheap because they were a consultant, but because they were a consultant for NGOs, the money's very small. They wanted to have this, and they wanted to have their home in the UK. It's not in London. It's about 100 kilometers out. It's a small home, but hey, it's their home.
Yeah.
Always have a place to come and crash and put your head down. But now that they're not living in it, they don't need a high-end sound equipment or etc. So they shrunk all of those, and this is what's important. What was important to them so they could get the choices.
And that is so, again, connected to this personal development, this thing you've got to exit before you exit so that you can identify what you really want. Because again, I think what sabotages so many people from even having the conversation about retirement is they're still really connected to this lifestyle that they have right now. They still see the car, the house, the prestige of what they have right now as who they are. And the idea of losing that persona will not even allow them to think about a lifestyle that would actually make them happy, because somewhere along the line, they connected success and happiness with this persona they're projecting. And I think if you get really clear and you start doing these mini retirements and you start really thinking about the exit, you realize 2 cars isn't what I'm trying to be. I'm trying to travel and have an experience. Maybe having a giant mansion that my friends like, that says I'm so great. Maybe that is the goal, but maybe it isn't. Maybe if you, and again, hey, if you think that's the goal, go live in a mansion for a while. You can afford that. You can get over the cost of that. Do that for a month. If that gives you all the joy in life, and you're wrapped up with other people perceiving you that way to have that, then I guess that's what you need your goal to be. But I think so many times people just haven't road tested the fact that, oh, I haven't checked myself. I don't actually care what other people think. I don't need to have this American white picket fence dream. That's just been something that's kind of drilled into me. Maybe my kids, I think I want that for my kids or my grandkids or something. What do I want? And because it hasn't been actually confronted or tested, they're just thinking a dollar amount for retirement to maintain this persona they've always had, or this thing that other people want for them. And then, hey, you get that at the end of life and you're not happy. It's because it was your dream of somebody else's expectation of you. And you've never really thought about what you want. Because I think when you unlock what you really want, maybe there's still a red Corvette at the end of that. Maybe that will make you happy, but there might
There
be
is
other
nothing
things
wrong
that
here.
don't. Yeah.
It's
I don't
just
know.
that I think you mentioned this. The question becomes, your next chapter, whose is it? Is it yours? Or is it your dad, your who is talking to that plan? And it's
Yeah.
very crucial. That's one of the things, just to cue up the commercial advertising for it. That's why I said I stopped being a consultant, because I said, as a partner for 2 years, I can help you to go through all of these, because
Yeah.
exit is not a instant decision. You really want to test these things. You want to have that shift, the growth, and just says, I build this business, which gives me the chance to be a bigger person, whatever that big
Yes.
is for you. If you want to
Whatever it is.
orbit, by all means. If
Yeah.
you want to be just an NGO founder, by all means. That is what giving you, and it takes a while, because it's not just a system in the business. It's also the system in your head that you need to shift, because what goes in here comes out. Your system.
And you won't, exactly, and you won't go through the hard. You won't suffer the hard if you don't if you don't crystal clear know what you're going for. I think a lot of people won't do that dip to get to the next level. They'll stay where they are because their goal isn't even their goal. It's dad's goal. It's their kid's goal. It's the wife goal. It's grandpa's goal. It's that guy from high school. I'm just trying to look better than him goal. And that's why you're not going through the hard, because there isn't something shiny enough that's connected to what you want to get through it, because the hard's coming. But it's like, is it pain of discipline or it's the pain of regret? The hard's coming either way. You get to choose what it is. But if you're aligned with what you want, because you actually took the time to go be honest with yourself, there's no pain that can get in your way.
Absolutely.
There's no pain that will stop you.
That is one of the things. And to be honest with you, that's one of the things. I was very blessed when I was younger. My dream was to be a soccer player. It was my dream, and I did everything I could, despite the fact that, unlike now, I was so skinny and short. Everybody said you have very little chance of succeeding. But I still put on the time. And when people ask me, I said, do you have any regrets? I said, absolutely nothing. Because one of the things that I learned, and this is what you just said again, kudos to you. My coach used to ask me, how much pain are you willing to tolerate?
Mm-hmm.
Then I tell you how
Mm-hmm.
far you're going to go. Because I was very skinny, and I remember he was a big guy. And I said, I want to build. when we were doing in practice, you had to piggyback somebody. He always became my partner, even though he was as much as I would always fall. I couldn't carry him. He always said, because you need to double the strength of your body, you need to carry me. So every time I would play, like I would team up with people. So I have a partner, so they would carry me. And they were happy because I was too light. And when it was my turn, he would pull my partner aside. He would come and I would have him. And it's
Yeah.
so difficult. And he always told me, because you have to go further, you need a bigger pain to get you there. These guys
Yeah.
are tall, their body mass is much bigger than you. They can do this. You don't have it. You need a bigger pain. Are you willing to
Mm.
take it? And I always said, yeah, why not? I want to get there. Did I get there eventually? No. But it always stayed with me that I say, what is the biggest pain am I willing to tolerate?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the lesson. That is what takes you to the next level of whatever it is you want. And I think, yes, sometimes in life, you'll tolerate pain to a point that you go, this isn't, this isn't the thing, but I know how. I know how to work through the pain. Maybe it's not this, but I'll take that learning and I'll apply it to the thing that I really want when I figure that out. And sometimes you don't have the capacity for pain. You're going to get injured. You're going to lose loved ones. Something's going to come sideways and your capacity for pain will go down. And that's okay. You can give yourself that moment, a break. It's life. But then you got to get back on the horse. And sometimes those experiences show you that maybe you do need to shift the pain you've been going through. Maybe that relationship you've been putting up with that's been painful, maybe you're done with that. Or maybe, this hard pain at an office that building somebody else's dream, maybe you can put in and be professional and put in the pain for somebody else, but maybe it's time to shift that to yourself. Maybe
Mhm.
it's time to switch that pain. But I think if you've never had to stay in the mud, be terrible, have to be humbled by the whole thing, have to constantly be so familiar with failure, if you are just not that familiar with failure, you don't have you got to work harder at the success, or you don't have a big enough why.
Yeah,
There isn't something there that's driving you. And I think that's why most humans are, pain averse and fear averse, is because there isn't something big enough that they've allowed themselves to chase after. And so their ability to tolerate pain is so low because their reward is low. They don't, why? Like if you're gonna stay in a dead end marriage, dead end life, dead end this, and on the hamster wheel going to that job every day, and you don't even know what you want. Well, yeah, you're gonna constantly keep yourself in a place of not having to get experience any more pain because your rewards are so small. And is that how you want to show up in life? I mean, maybe there's a time in life when that happens. Sometimes, okay, you went through this whole thing, but if that's still your excuse years later, now it's an excuse, now it's a crutch. At some point it's going to get worse before it gets better, and you have to lean into that. You really have to lean into that, and what gets you through that is knowing that the goal you've made, and really understanding that it will be painful either way. It's a regret pain that comes from status quo and just maintaining comfort because I can't handle this anymore. I don't have capacity and I'm just going to stay there. That will turn into a regret later. Or you're going through it. It's hard. You do it anyway because you got a reason.
absolutely. I'm conscious of time because Leah said you have an appointment.
I do. I've got another one I got to get prepared for at the top of the hour. This was amazing, Homie. Thank you so
Likewise.
much
Thank you very
for
much.
all that. I love the exit before you exit. I think we nailed the point. And yeah, I'll put
Wish me
this
luck with
together.
this book. Well, for now, it's a manuscript. I'm very careful with self, but we'll see.
Very cool.
Let me
Well,
know if
thank
you
you,
want to have
Homie.
another chat whenever you want. As I said, this time is my easiest time. And
Okay, this is the time. Okay,
yeah,
great.
because Wednesday, Thursday, Friday after 5 p.m., I work on at home, but for myself. So I'm usually free. And that's why I was saying to Leah yesterday, I said, tell her not to worry. I like literally I was
Okay, good.
in my book and your Zoom was open. I said, well, whenever she comes, she says hello.
Yeah.
You know, so don't worry about those things, but I really enjoy it. If you want to have another one, just let me know.
Yeah. I'd love to. I'll let you know. Thank you, Homy. Have a great day,
Take
and
care.
I'll
Have a
send you the
good day.
recording. Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye. Huh? Not sure now.